Hello and welcome to the walk-off, everybody. It is the Friday show. I'm Scott Belfort, joined by the best co-host in the biz, Adam Mack. We sit here January 3rd. We are back. We had big aspirations and even said them out loud on the podcast of maybe doing more content between the 25th and 31st. And not a lot has happened. I know we were going to do a show mailbag on the 31st, and I had forgotten, not in a way that I'm going to get my hand slapped or anything. I had already got the birthday gift and everything, but the 31st is Taylor's birthday. And her parents were in town and
Mm-hmm.
she was. Anyways, I
Mm-hmm.
hope you all understand why that show was canceled last minute as I woke up and went to start the podcast. And she's like, "It's my birthday." And I'm like, "Of course it is. I knew this 100%, obviously. I can't wait to give you my gift and my undying attention for the whole day."
Oh man. Well, I would, you know what? It is also just hard to do a podcast when there is no news and the
Yes,
team stinks.
yes. But here
When
we
there's
are.
no when there's no news, but the team is like good and exciting, we can come on and fantasize about the season ahead. And it's like,
Mhm.
oh, we just got this guy and he might be amazing and how far are we going to go this year? And who wants to do that when the team stinks? Like, so.
And this is where we're at 3 days later. I mean, nothing has really happened outside of Corbin Burns and Teoscar Hernandez since basically Nate Eovaldi signed middle of December. Free agency has come to basically a halt. There's been a few minor trades. Vidal Brujan was traded from the Marlins to the Cubs for I forget his name now, but another top prospect too. Underrated guys, or I shouldn't say underrated, struggling guys trying to find new life in a different scenery. Like these are the moves being made right now. There are still some big free agents on the market. So we are going to get into it. Listen, I'm in the Dominican Republic right now, Santiago.
Domingo?
Yes, Santo Domingo. Sorry, my brain just. I've been drinking and smoking for 3 days straight, folks. So, like, I've been on vacation. Just stick with me while some of these things don't connect as quickly as we might want. We get a lot of shit for not connecting fast enough, anyways. So, here we are. We're going to talk a little bit about the DR. Lead them, the games coming up here that I'm going to go to tonight. We'll be brief on that. By the way, if any of you have any questions about Lido and how to watch the games in the Dominican Republic, if you're coming to vacation here in Punta Cana and you want to see Santo Domingo, shoot me a DM. I love it here. I love it so much, the baseball, and I'm passionate about it. So if you do want to like get the ins and outs of how to see some baseball when you're on vacation in the DR, hit me up. Would love to share that with you. We're going to get into friend of the show. Keegan Matheson had a report on Anthony Santander. His free agency seems to be getting closer and closer to coming to a close. Who frickin' knows, though? Alec Monoa recently was on the Deep Left Field podcast with Mike Wilner, and he was talking his mechanics and how good he's feeling. We'll touch on that. We're going to do a breakdown of this front office's tenure over the last 9 years. We're going to see if by the end of talking about this, maybe we can cleanse our palate a little bit and give them a little bit of leeway until the season starts. We know that they have done not enough in this off season. This team still isn't good enough, but there is time. We'll see if maybe they deserve that time. We're going to predict, Adam and I each are going to predict which starting pitcher in this Blue Jays rotation is going to take the lead as their pseudo ace. We both are aware, Adam, this team probably doesn't actually have an ace. Feel free to speak now if you feel that that is not the case. Yeah. So we're gonna predict who we think will be technically the top starter in 2025. We're going to break down the 2025-2026 top 20 free agents, and then we'll touch on Shohei Otani, because I read a very interesting prediction from Sportsnet's David Singh about Shohei Otani, and he thinks that he is done as a pitcher forever. So we'll kind of touch on that a little bit, maybe get your comments from the grounds crew here, and we can circle back on that on Tuesday for mailbag. All right, Mr. Mac, let's break into it. Dominican Republic is where I am right now, going to a ball game tonight. Juan Marichal Stadium in Santo Domingo. Juan Marichal, of course, the first Dominican to play in Major League Baseball, Hall of Famer, played with San Francisco. He's got a big statue at the front of the stadium and is considered a basically a god in the Dominican, as kind of the Jackie Robinson of their country. So that's very cool. Licey and Estrellas are playing, and they're playing in San Pedro de Marcones, where they call it the cradle of shortstops. That's where guys like Fernando Tatis and Tony Fernandez and Manny Lee and the list goes on and on. If you look up the list of players from San Pedro, you will be blown away by how many major league shortstops come from there. Again, you have any questions on the DR and the baseball here, please DM me, because I would love to help you watch baseball on your vacation. We're going to get into the Blue Jays now. Teoscar Hernandez obviously was, I don't know if he was the big hope for this fan base, but I think that everyone saw how he would fit in very nicely. His relationship to Vladimir Guerrero Jr., the lack of power this team has had since he left. He seemed like a really good fit. But I think that the better fit is Anthony Santander, who profiles very similarly, except he's a switch hitter, something that this team has not had, is a good switch hitter in years. No offense to Stuart Baroa, who was on the team last year. Keegan Matheson came out with a post, and this was after Hector Gomez basically tweeted that the Blue Jays have supposedly offered Anthony Santander a 4-year, $82 million deal. So kind of a Edwin Encarnacion. Remember when they offered him the 4-year, $80 million deal and then pulled it 3 days later so that they could sign Kendrys Morales? Tough lesson to learn by this front office, that maybe if you have targeted a guy and want to re-sign him, that you give them a little bit of time in free agency to test the waters. I mean, they have waited their whole life to get there. So we all, as Jays fans, remember Edwin then going to Cleveland for $20 million in 1 year less than the Blue Jays offered him, because they'd already pulled that offer and signed a guy who... Do you think Kendrys Morales is one of the biggest disappointments this front office has signed?
Yeah, I mean,
Top 10,
yeah.
maybe not a top 5.
I mean, given the context of like instead of Edwin, yeah, that boosts it up a lot. Honestly, like other than the first 18 months of George Springer, this has been a pretty disappointing signing. Like the hype on the name and what this could mean meant it wasn't disappointing early on. But he hasn't produced outside of his first year, maybe 2. But even by the second year, I don't think he was like, he felt like he was, oh, this is a superstar. So I don't know. For the money, I'd say George Springer is the most disappointing. But yeah, given the context of beloved Edwin, here's Kendrys Morales as an alternative. Yeah, disappointing.
It still pisses me off. I just was such an Edwin fan. That's one that still sticks in my craw as a Jays fan, was losing him to less money and less term. But nonetheless, long ago and far away now, talking Anthony Santander. This is from Keegan Matheson's latest article. He says players who fit the Blue Jays keep flying off the board, but Anthony Santander remains. The Blue Jays know Santander well from his days with the Orioles, perhaps too well after some of his performances against them. And he profiles well to fit in their lineup. While Teoscar Hernandez was beloved, he is off the board. Santander has always felt like a cleaner fit for what Ross Atkins is chasing due to the 30-year-old outfield's ability to hit left-handers and the fact that he is a switch hitter. So, yeah, Santander is a really good fit for this team. 4 years, 82 million. I could swallow that. And maybe this is where the free agent process has slowed down for a lot of these guys like Pete Alonso and Anthony Santander. Is they may be in a situation, Adam, very similar to where Cody Bellinger and Blake Snell found themselves last year. Just for whatever reason, were not the main targets, which is really interesting to see Blake Snell come back on the open market, be a main target, and get the big money he was after. So maybe that is
Yeah.
something that we'll see the polar bear do. We're going to count down the top 20 free agents in 2025, 2026, so next year's class. And I think that that will show you where maybe some of these guys are thinking, right? Maybe this is the problem is that some of these guys don't want to go back into free agency in 1 year and give a short term prove it deal to somebody. So Santander, my guess is after 5 years, and maybe that's the sticking point right now is no one's offering more than 3 or 4. He's 30 years old. This is probably his last big payday. You're going to want to squeeze everything out of it you can. Of course, if the offers aren't there, the offers aren't there. Pete Alonso is another guy Adam talked about.
Hmm.
And if the rumors are true, dude, the best offer he has on the table is 3 years, 90 million from the Mets.
Yeah. 30 years old, just turned 30 on December 7th. Bad defensive first baseman. I'm
God, he
I'm
hits
sh-
bombs.
yeah, I mean, like I get it with Vladdy, the hype around Vlad. Like it seems like everybody is not wanting to make a splash on Alonzo when they could wait 12 months, ride it out with whoever they've got, or like the Yankees going the Goldschmidt route for 1 year, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
someone's going to sign Anthony Rizzo for a 1 year deal. Like it's going to be just, hey, we need a band-aid at first base, or the guy we have is good enough for now. Yeah, like I don't know why you would give Alonzo a big deal until after Vlad signed. Like for sure, if Alonzo was to be like, okay, give me 40 million for 1 year and then redid free agency next year, like Vlad's gonna sign first, but then of the 6 teams in on Vlad, 5 are now gonna probably give Alonzo a bigger deal once they have definitively missed out on Vlad, right?
This is the other thing to keep in mind, too. So we're just going to skip ahead to this top 20 free agents of next year. Kyle
Okay,
Tucker and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. are the top 1, 2, however you want to rank them,
sure.
however you value their position and age. If you want
Yeah,
to put Tucker first,
sure.
that's fine. So
Okay.
that's 1, 2.
Mm-hmm.
After that, it gets really interesting because it's a deep free agent class when it comes to pitching, and on the other side of the field, on the player position portion of this free agent class, they are lacking. So in at number 3 would be Dylan Cease. Number 4, Zach Galen. Number 5, Framber Valdez. Number 6, Michael King. Number 7, Devin Williams. Number 8, Shane Bieber. Number 9, Edwin Diaz. In at number 10 is the next position player, Cody Bellinger, who, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
he plays outfield, but he's more and more getting squeezed into that first base position. So there's another option at first base is Cody Bellinger. Number 11 is Ryan Helsley. Number 12, Bo Bichette. 13, Marcelo Zuna, who's a straight up DH. Luisa Rise, first base. Josh Naylor, first base. Ranger Suarez, pitcher. JT Realmuto, catcher. Kyle Schwarber, DH. And then Jock Peterson, DH. So literally, next
A
year's
lot of
player
options,
position,
eh?
it's all
At
DHs and
first.
first basemen,
Yeah,
which squeezes Pete even more when you start going down the
I
list of
guess.
26-year-old Vladimir Guerrero Jr., 28-year-old Josh Naylor, 30-year-old Cody Bellinger, 29-year-old Luis Ariz, right? So you start looking at that and you're like, where does, especially when you start talking about DHs, right? And you're looking at Kyle Schwarber, who's just a pure DH, Jock Peterson, who's just a pure DH, Cody Bellinger, who's kind of fits in that realm a little bit. You look at
I see
Marcelo
Salvador
Zuna.
Perez is on this list. I know he's a catcher, but he's
Mm-hmm.
getting older.
Mm-hmm.
Would you take Sal Perez as a DH?
That's a really good question.
He hit 40 plus home runs not long ago.
He hit 48 dingers the year Vladimir Guerrero Jr. hit 48 dingers.
Um, okay, 48, but then since then, 23, 23, and 27.
Yeah. And
I
this is
guess
his
we can.
final year of that contract, or does he have 2 more years?
He's listed as a 2026 free agent, same as
Okay.
Vlad and Bellinger and everybody else.
Okay. Well, there you
Um,
go. And he's not in the top 20, which makes sense actually, but
yeah. Probably rather JT Realmuto if you're in on a
um
catcher.
and the 20th guy on this list, by the way, is Eugenio Suarez. So Gino, third
Um,
baseman.
would you be interested in the Jays doing a Alonzo deal?
So they probably need to go 4 years to get that done.
4 years, 120 million? Like if he's getting 390 from the Mets, like
I sure think that he makes this a much better offensive lineup, at least for the next few years. I mean, I think
like you just throw him at
personally,
DH, right? And he plays first base on Vladdy's off days.
yeah, that's what I would do. 30 million a year is a lot to pay a DH, but this offense sucks. So like
Well,
we're
what's
really
the offer on Santander? 25 million? 23?
it's technically if Hector Gomez is
Sure.
correct, okay, and this is a big if.
Hmm.
Whenever Hector Gomez and Carlos Vargas start throwing out their rumors, I'm always like, I don't know if it's just their ability to do any sort of work on the computer is what turns me off. You know, you look at their graphics and stuff, and you're just like, has a graphic designer been involved in this, or have you let your 4-year-old get on his little paint thing and like put it together here for you? But yeah, if it's true, the rumors are 4 years, 82 million is the Blue Jays offer on Santander.
4 years, 82
So
million, like 20 and a
20 point
half.
20 and a half million a year. I mean, if you can get Santander for that, I think I'd rather Santander than Pete Alonso if you got to pick one. But maybe the Jays could do something crazy like sign Anthony Santander 4 years, 82 million, sign Pete Alonso 1 year, 35. Maybe Pete will roll it back. Although first base is pretty beefy next year. I mean, it's a pretty
Well,
big dip after Vladimir Guerrero Jr., but Luis Ariz is no slouch. Josh Naylor hits bombs.
we want, who do we want as our first baseman in 2026?
I want Vladimir Guerrero
Okay,
Jr.
yeah, that doesn't make for a very interesting conversation though. So let's assume he's a Met or a Red Sox, or maybe a Dodger. I know the Dodgers have Freeman for another year or two, but Maybe they bring Vlad over to play third for 2 seasons until Freddie's gone. I don't know. Um, Internal options.
I mean, there are a couple internal options. Riley Terada had a pretty good AAA season last year. He got the call up in May to Buffalo from New Hampshire, 25 years old, plays third, plays first, hits for a little
Spencer
bit of power.
Horwitz. Oh wait, we traded him.
Yeah. Yeah. Internally, you got Damigiani or
Parmigiani.
Damiano Parmigiani, right?
Yeah.
Canadian kid, friend of the show. He plays first and third. He struggled last year in AAA, and I think that they're just going to run him right back to the Bisons and hope that he kind of recaptures a little bit of that shine he had in 2024. 2023 when he was hitting bombs with the Fisher Cats. No, I get like the real answer here is no. There aren't really any internal options when it comes to first base. Without taking a big dip, right? Like without and it's a risky endeavor. It's like the guys who want and I'm not saying it maybe isn't the right move, but it's like the fans who want Alan Roden and Aroldis Martinez to break with the team playing third and left.
Right.
I like both those guys, Adam,
Sure.
but that feels like a rebuild move. That doesn't feel like we're contending in 2025.
Well, how many years do you think Pete Alonso is going to be good for? Plays first base, right? So like he doesn't have to
Mm-hmm.
be mobile in the outfield. Shouldn't have to beat up his body too much,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like what if you lowered the AAV and you just went total dollars? You go, hey, you've seen where the market is on you. Do you want to sign for 3, 4 years, or do you want to sign for 6 or 7? And you give them 150 million over 7, or like something. Let's not split hairs on the exact numbers here, but
Yeah,
we bring it down to where it is around like the Anthony Santander number of like 20-ish, between 20 and 25.
but
You
you
get him
guarantee
for
him.
you get him
Yeah.
for longer, and he's like, well, yeah, he's like, if this is gonna be the last contract I sign, I'm gonna get 150. Whereas if I do it like a 90 over 3 with the Mets, do I even get another 60 million for the next 3 years after that? I don't know. I just feel like there's an opportunity here to be like realistic that we're the Blue Jays and stop
Mm-hmm.
aiming for the moon and falling
Mm-hmm.
short. Like
Mm-hmm.
at a certain point, we have to be like, hey, okay, we're not. Juan Soto's not coming here. Shohei's not coming here. Like Vladdy's probably gone, but yeah,
Mm-hmm.
we can go get a Josh Naylor or swoop in and get a fucking absolute bargain on a guy who's a lock for 35 plus home runs in Pete Alonso.
Maybe you go even higher AAV, right? Like maybe you go to Pete Alonso and you say, what if we give you 65, 2 years, 65 million with an opt out after one? Like,
Yeah,
would Pete Alonso be interested in going back to the free agent market at 33? I don't know. Who knows
yeah.
what Pete wants? Like the polar bear is very aware that the Mets money is earmarked for bigger fish.
Hmm.
And there's always something to be said for the guys who are homegrown talents. Sometimes they are appreciated more by the hometown,
Hmm.
and sometimes they're appreciated less. And I feel like Pete might be that guy leaning a little bit appreciated on the lesser side. So who knows? We'll have to wait it out and see, right? Time will tell, that old classic. But
Hmm.
and then as for the next topic, it's kind of an internal rebound, if you will. Alec Monoa was on Deep Left Field, Mike Wilner's podcast, and he was talking about his 2022 mechanics. And basically, the crux of it is he says, my arm action and the patterning of my arm has gone right back into the same slot that I was used to throwing at in college and early on when I got brought up in 2021 and 2022. Of course, those were Alec Manoa's big years where he was flirting with a Cy Young in 2022 and came up in 2021, despite Adam, you and I on the podcast being like, you're rushing him up. This kid's 23 years old. He's only throwing 30 innings in the minor leagues. He missed the COVID season. Why are you rushing this guy? We were very, very adamant that the fact the Blue Jays were calling him up was because they were desperate, and you hate seeing a kid put into a situation when they're desperate. And boy, did Big Puma ever take that step, right? It was very exciting for Blue Jays fans. And then to watch him come into 2022 and literally not take a step back, not have that sophomore slump, not need to readjust to the league. In fact, became an all-star and finished third in Cy Young voting. And then completely and totally collapsed in 2023. So that's the good news, is that Manoa feels he's right back where he should be. I mean, this is another one of those situations where time will tell. He did say he's aiming to pitch the last 2 months of the regular season, but added he didn't want to put any firm timeline on his recovery. I know he has dreams of being back by July 1st. Most likely it's August 1st. You never know with these Tommy John surgeries. I know he only got the brace, but as soon as you start messing around with anybody's elbow there with surgery and putting in new ligaments and shit like that, it's person to person. So it is good to hear that Alec Manoa feels like he's right back where he wants to be. When you hear this, Adam, what do you think?
Well, first of all, it's like, what else would he say than like, hey, here's a reason I'm optimistic for this year to be good. Like, sure, okay, I'm feeling good. I found my mechanics again. Okay, sure, whatever the fuck that means. Great. Would he ever say, yeah, I don't know, I'm really struggling to relearn how to pitch? Like, of course not. So whatever. That makes me roll my eyes. But just the topic of Alec Monoa and like, oh, hopefully be back for the last 2 months of the season. What's that? August? August and September? Boy, it sure makes the whole like squabble about service time manipulation sure laughable, hey?
Yeah.
Like were we ever counting our chickens before they hatched in that regard?
Oh man. So much so. So much so.
It's yikes, eh? But no, I don't know. Best of luck to Alec Manoa. I'm not holding my breath. I'm sure he'll pitch great for the Pirates one day.
One thing it does line up really well with for the timeline is when the Blue Jays sell off all their top pitchers at the deadline, they have a guy to fill in. Not to be that guy.
Honestly, that's probably best case scenario is, if this team goes south and we talked about like last year would have been the perfect year for Elvis Martinez to make that leap. Right? Get some reps at the major league level, blah, blah, blah. It's potentially the same situation this year where by the trade deadline, we're so far out of it, we're selling off assets and being like, well, let's bring Alec Manoa back in low pressure games that mean nothing.
Yeah.
And he either pitches good and we feel like he can contribute to the next window, or he rebuilds his value and we can trade him in the offseason to help towards replenishing the farm for the next window.
Yeah. So speaking of Alec Monoa and starting pitching, 2025 Blue Jays starter of the year. Who you going with, Adam? Who is our pseudo ace this upcoming season? Who is the pitcher when there is a losing streak going on, you want to see take the ball because at least there's a good chance that it stops with them?
Well, given that criteria, I don't think we have one. I don't think there's a stop the bleeding guy. I think my most generous interpretation of who's the ace this year is who's going to get us the most innings,
Yeah.
which I think is a sign of they pitched well and stayed healthy enough. Like they were pitching deep enough into games. They weren't
Yeah.
getting early hooks often, right?
Hmm.
Who- Who's most likely to pitch into the sixth and seventh inning, however they get there?
Yeah.
And for me, that's Jose Barrios.
And you know what? That's a pretty good guess. I was very close to going with Jose Barrios because of his track record. There's no one who logs more innings in this league than Jose Barrios. He under the radar constantly puts up good numbers and probably doesn't get the love around the league he deserves because he is inconsistent within these seasons, right? So, like,
Mm-hmm.
you will have a month of Jose Barrios having an ERA of 6, and you will be
Mm-hmm.
pulling your hair out wondering what just happened to the guy who had put up 3 months solid of 3 ERA baseball, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden, you're like, has Jose Barrios lost it? And this is just his MO since we
Yeah,
traded for him from the Twins. Ask any Minnesota Twins fan in your
indeed.
baseball world, they're going to tell you the exact same thing. Enjoy the
Mm-hmm.
ups and downs that is Jose Barrios. So I think it's a good guess here. I'm going a little bit different way, and this might be hopium. This might be just me
If you
really,
say
really.
Bowden Francis,
Kevin, come on, come on,
that
come on. I
huh?
I I love Bowden Francis, and I really hope he just continues to surprise everyone. But come on, I'm going with Kevin Gosman. I think that I really do hope, anyways, that he recaptures a little
Roger
bit of his
that.
2023 season. I know that he
Sure.
struggled last year for a few reasons. Number one, he didn't get the ramp up that he really wanted to. He had a few injuries that he was dealing with. Teams were really sitting on his splitter. They had figured out his pitch math, basically. And he did add that slider back in. He's been working on making it, you know, he wants to have a 3 pitch arsenal as he's getting older, and it's getting harder and harder for him to deceive whether it's a fastball or splitter. 2 pitch pitchers are always in that kind of realm of like, yeah, it's dangerous. It's a dangerous game to play because if one of your pitches isn't landing, guess what? You've got one weapon, and guys in Major League Baseball are going to sit on it. So I do hope Kevin Gosman can kind of recapture some of that magic that we saw those first 2 seasons that he was with the Blue Jays. So I'm going with Gauze.
Can
Kevin.
I love your optimism.
Mhm.
If this team has any real ambitions on the postseason,
They need this to happen. Yeah.
his bounce back is more important than Bo Bichette's, in my opinion. Um, Despite this team feeling like all we need is fucking more offense more than anything, I feel like Cy Young
Yeah.
caliber Gossman is fucking sure gonna come in handy.
Sure going to
Um,
come in handy. Grounds crew, let us know who do you think the best pitcher on this team is going to be in 2025? Let us know.
can I add one additional asterisk here? We just
Sure.
made fun of Bowden Francis. If we were to say like ace in the conventional sense, I would say Bowden Francis has the best shot at being that for us. Because he's on the way up. He's young, like he's
Yes.
28, so
Yeah.
he's in theory in his prime. Again, a lot has to go right, but there is that like we saw flashes of it at the end of last season,
Hmm.
and there's just the chance that he is still on the way up, and we don't. When a guy's on the way up, you don't know how high the ceiling is.
Exactly.
So, as much as I can laugh at Bowden Francis and scoff at the idea of him even being our number 5, doesn't make me feel great.
Hmm.
But if we're like, who's the guy that's going to be like a stop the bleeding guy, and thank God we got to start from him coming up against the Yankees or whatever, might be Bowden Francis, as crazy as that is to say.
And folks, honestly, when it comes
The
to Bowen
spectrum of
Francis,
outcomes is so broad.
I know we're going to get some comments just calling us haters. I just wish to say I really, really like Bowden Francis. I've liked him since they picked him up from Milwaukee in the Trevor Richards, Rowdy Tellez swap there. I think that
Mhm.
he has been touted as a guy who is going to help this team for years for a reason. And I think him adding that splitter to his repertoire and doing it so well. He's a very intellectual guy. He's a very zen dude, and he's not a guy who relies on velo, which means the kid knows how to pitch. All of those things set you up for good careers going into your 30s. We watch it happen all the time. Kevin Gosman is even
Mhm.
kind of a example of that. Charlie Morton, like there are so many. Pitching is so difficult, especially when you don't have 101 in your arsenal and
Mhm.
you need to hit your spots. And guess what? Being clear in the mind and focused and all of this stuff is a big deal, right? You know, like we watched Alec Monoa. He's running around telling Garrett Cole to cross the Audi sign. He's flexing into the, like he's not who you picture as Mr. Zen, right? Whereas
Mhm.
like Bowden Francis, you can see really being that guy of hitting his corners, switching his pitches up, getting crafty and wily.
Let's get some Bao Zen Francis merch made up, shall we?
All right, buddy. We are coming to the end of this thing. We're going to go over this front office's tenure here, and we're going to see if we can give them a little bit of leeway in 2025 before they start this season. I'm gonna say I'm already out of patience, but we had to fill time here somewhere, folks. So this is what we're doing. So they took
Indeed.
over after the 2015 season. Mark Shapiro obviously was hired in September. He was given the presidency position of baseball operations. He then offered Alex Anthopoulos to stay on as general manager, but in the Shapiro realm, which means that he is not autonomous. He doesn't get all final says. It will be very much and we've heard this a million times, a collaborative effort. Alex Anthopoulos chose not to go that route. I think the big thing was that Anthopoulos wanted the presidency position himself and felt a little snubbed by Rogers. And so he then left the organization, wound up taking a consultant job with the Dodgers for a couple of years before eventually being the big dog in Atlanta. And we all know where that went. In 2017, this front office lost Edwin Encarnacion. They did that little trick we talked about earlier in the podcast where they offered him 4 years, 80 million, then pulled it 3 days later so that they could sign Kendrys Morales. And then Edwin went to Cleveland for 3 years, 60 million because nothing else was on the table for. 2017, they didn't trade Donaldson, deciding to run the team back, try again for another playoff spot. Coming off back-to-back ALCS, it's really tough to actually blame them for this one. I know as a fan,
Mhm.
I wanted them running this team back. And then shit just happened. Donaldson was injured. Father Time caught up with Jose Batista. In comes 2018. They sell off everyone of value. Marcus Stroman, the Ozuna shit goes down. Suna. Uh, Full on rebuild is basically what happened. 2019, they lose 95 games and finish, get this, Adam, fourth in the division. That's how bad the Orioles were. They lost
Crazy.
95 games and still finished fourth. Just in comparison, they lost 74 games last year and finished dead last in the division. The AL East back to its peak condition as the Jays are struggling here.
Mhm.
It makes it worse. It definitely makes it feel worse. 2020, that was the 60 game season, the year we started the podcast. Shockingly, they made the playoffs that year, 32 and 28. Obviously, I think on 162 games, there's no way that they kept up that pace. They were a very young team. They had signed Hyunjin Ryu that off season, which was the first Scott Boras client that had been signed in over a decade to the Blue Jays. In fact, some of you might remember Scott Boras being very catty and sassy with the Blue Jays, saying that they don't spend money and that they've got the blue flu, right? So that was the first time that Boris and the Jays had done a deal in a decade. 2021, they signed George Springer. They signed Marcus Semien to the 1 year, $18 million deal. They won 91 games. They missed the playoffs by one game. In fact, I think all hardcore Jays fans will remember sitting there watching the Washington Nationals and the Boston Red Sox in those final few innings as the Nationals were up on the Red Sox. And we were all like, oh my God, we're 4 innings away from the playoffs. And then it just all unraveled there as the Red Sox put the nail in the Nationals' coffin and the Blue Jays simultaneously. 2022, they did not double back down on Marcus Semien. At the time, it felt like the right move as he got paid so much by the Rangers. Now looking back, I don't know. I think we may have picked the wrong old man, but that's the way the cookie crumbles, as they say. They did sign Kevin Gausman, which wound up being a very good signing. They won one more game than last year, so 92 games they won, and they hosted the Wild Card Series in Toronto, their first home playoff game since 2016. That was against Seattle, and then, of course, we're well aware of the total and utter collapse, the Teoscar Hernandez curtain call, which then brought on, I think it was 11 unanswered runs by the Seattle Mariners, the Bo Bichette and George Springer collision in center, all of that. The nightmare for the Blue Jays fans ended that year with them being eliminated by the Mariners. 2023, the overcorrection happens. That's when they moved Teo and Lourdes and Moreno. They brought in Varsho and went very heavy into their pitching and defense plan. They won 89 games, but they did go back to the wild card this time as the visiting team in Minnesota. They got swept, only putting up 2 runs total. I was at that series and it was fucking gross. Manoah also collapsed in 2023.
Right.
2024, this front office said, you know what? We're not wrong. You're wrong. And they ran it right back, which of course then equaled a 74-win team. They have yet to sign Vladdy, Bo, really any of this core that was hyped up to us as fans. So I don't know if this list makes you feel like maybe we should give them a little more time this offseason.
Yeah, I was waiting for the upside here, Scott.
Yeah, where is the positives in this? I don't know. Here's the thing with this front office is that, and I think we've said it on the show quite a bit, but they're a good front office. They're just not great. And sometimes a good front office hits a wall and can't get over it. And this is where we're at. It sure feels like it right now. And I know that people are going to, this is one thing I will say to everyone who counts their playoff appearances. They count 2020. So number one, they count 2016, which was Alex Anthopoulos' team. I'll give it to him. It's fine. But the fact that the furthest that this front office, Mark Shapiro and Ross Atkins, has gone in the playoffs is the ALCS on the back of Alex Anthopoulos' team. Tough to give them credit for that. 2020, they go to the playoffs in the 60-game season when they're letting 16 teams in. They go to Tampa Bay and lose right away. They did some weird stuff, putting Matt Schumacher in as their go-to starter instead of Hyun-Jin Ryu. Ryu pitched really well in game 2 anyways, and they just couldn't pull it off. They were a young team. It was a very exciting time, 2020, right? Just like it felt like things were finally coming together. 2021, I mean, shit. Hey, call me. Joel will tell you that was our year, right? Like that, the bullpen imploded. 2022, all Shapiro active. No one's taken that one away from them. So one real
1 out of 8
self-produced. 2023, they did a complete overcorrection, we like to call it. 2024.
Yeah, no, it's not good, man.
It's not good.
I mean, okay. It's one. So it's 2 playoff appearances plus the 2016 one.
And 2020. So technically you can say 4. You can say it's 4 playoff appearances.
Right. But 2020 was like short season and massive playoff berth.
Yes,
Over half the league got in. You're a 500 club for 2 months. You're making the playoffs.
that's right.
Um, I guess if I'm to be generous with my giving credit where credit is due, I will say the fact that they did a rebuild at all after like the 2016 sell-off or whatever, like
Hmm.
with the Batista, Edwin, Donaldson era coming to an end, and then giving us a timeline of what the next rebuild was going to look like, they pulled it off.
They
It
were
just didn't
accurate on their
sustain.
timeline, and they did do the turnaround pretty quick. Like they really
So,
started the
I
rebuild in
mean,
2018, and they technically made the expanded playoffs in 2020.
so that is, I know there's a
Who
bunch of
wants a
asterisks you can
who
throw
wants a
on
front
with,
off? Who wants a front office that's good at rebuilds, though?
well, fuck it, I could sure use one starting this year. I fucking
Oh,
take that.
yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
I don't know. There you go.
all right. Well, let's end it on a question to you, the grounds crew here. Number one, a very happy new year to everybody. Hope you all enjoyed your holiday season. I know we're kind of back to the grind here, but Shohei Otani, David Singh had a very interesting article on Sportsnet today where he made a bold prediction saying that Shohei Otani will not go back to pitching and will concentrate more on stolen bases, concentrate more on hitting bombs, and he'll be the best DH in the history of designated hitters. And I am very curious as to what you folks think. I actually don't even have an opinion on this. I think that he will start pitching again this year. And I think that it will take an injury or something to go wrong for him to truly consider not doing both. But who knows? This Dodgers team is so stacked. Maybe he does just fit in better if he's just worrying about hitting. I mean, they've got a pretty darn deep starting rotation. So who knows? What do you think, Adam? Do you have an opinion one way or the other?
I mean, yes and no. I think he will pitch in a Dodgers uniform
Yes.
just to check the box of that he technically did it, and the Dodgers PR team will have a heyday with it, and the bobbleheads and the highlight package and all of that. It is important from a marketing standpoint that he is shown on the mound pitching in a Dodgers uniform. I think historically that is important to the franchise. Can we agree on
Hmm.
that?
I agree.
Beyond that, and I'm not saying like he's going to go out there for one inning in relief or
Hmm.
that he's only going to get one start. Like, I think there will be a legitimate effort to have him pitch, even if it's like,
Every sixth game.
well, that was already his thing. He was already
Yeah.
a 6-man rotation pitcher with the Angels. But I mean, like, I don't think he'll be ready for opening day. So the team's going to have to build a rotation that doesn't expect to have Shohei as a pitcher. And then I think there will be a ramp up where, like, by the midsummer break, he's pitching and then he'll pitch through the year. So he'll pitch like half a season. He'll get like, a dozen or so starts. And then I don't think he pitches again beyond this season.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way that this year will be the year we see Shohei pitching in a Dodgers uniform, and that after that, I mean, especially when you see Juan Soto's deal, and you're like, you know what, 700 million for one of the best DHs in baseball isn't so bad when you're paying
This is
765
it.
to, yeah, so there you go.
Right. And
Let
like
us
if you can
know.
make him
Drop
an
your comments
outfielder,
below.
just stick him in right field or something,
Yeah.
like you could still get stuff out of him, but I think he just hit like he is such a good hitter that you just take him as an offensive weapon and be like
Hmm.
he could steal, like he could still add value, but like yeah, maybe we don't need to push our luck and have him pitch too, because the devastating thing is when he blows his arm out again and now he also can't hit for 3 months.
Or even worse, Ricky Romero's it and twists his knee or hyperextends his glute
Sure.
or something weird in his lower half
Yeah.
pitching, and then
Right.
just is, yeah, yeah.
Like the
Anyways,
value of him is as a hit. Like he is a really good pitcher. I'm not trying to take that
yeah,
away from him. But yeah, you'll yeah. Anyways, you gotta
sounds
go.
true.
Let's get out of
Drop your
here.
comments. Let us know. Where do you think Shohei Otani is in 2026? Is he just a hitter? Is he just a DH? Do you think that we're full of shit? Do you think David Singh's prediction is a miss? And you think he's going to pitch and hit well into his late 30s? That would be cool. All right, folks, I'm going to let you go here. My wife is already on me to
I could
get
tell she's
off
nagging at you.
podcasting, and talking baseball and
Happy
get back to
birthday, Taylor.
vacationing. Yes. Thank you, Adam. Appreciate that. So cheers, everybody. We will see you Patreon folks Monday for MLB Mondays and Tuesday for mailbag, everyone else. Take